Hi everyone, my name is Scott, and I'd like to welcome you to our Zoho Creator Tutorial series, where we teach you how to make custom business applications from scratch. At first, we're just going to be going over the basics, but we'll move into more advanced functionality as we go. While you don't have to watch every video, in each one, we're going to take a different component of what we've built so that you can see how to do it and then apply it to a similar app that you might be making yourself. In this first video, we're going to be creating a vacation request management application. The goal of this app is to make it easy for employees to request time off and for a manager to handle that whole HR process from within the app. First, let me show you what the employee will be seeing in this app. And then later, I'll show you what the manager will see in our demo app. So now I'm going to show you guys what this app is like from the employee perspective. When I go in to use this app, there's just a simple little form here, and I choose my name, and I can actually type this in because we have a long list of employees. I'm just going to type in my name, and it finds me there. Next, I'll choose the first and last day of my vacation. So I just click in this box, and a nice little calendar button pops up, which makes it really fast to pick my dates. Now I'm going to say the 15th and the 16th. I'll fill in those 2 days in the last little field there, and then I hit submit, and a little message pops up confirming that I made a submission. And also at the same time, I received this email, which tells me how many days I requested off and which dates they were. That's where I can verify that I submitted the right days for my request, and my boss will also be getting an email with the same information, but we'll talk more about that later. The other cool thing about this is that, let's say in this imaginary organization, you're given 20 days off a year. How do you keep track of how many days you've already taken off without wasting a bunch of time asking your manager to look it up? We actually built in a system that prevents you from submitting this form if you're asking for too many days off. So, if I choose my name from the list, and let's say I want a whole month off, and I try and submit it, I get this little alert message that tells me that I only have 4 vacation days left for this year. This way, I don't have to waste anyone's time figuring that out. It's just all done in the system, and I can make sure that I plan my vacation days accordingly. Okay, so now that you've seen the employee side of things, I'm going to take you through what a manager would see. Already you can tell that there's 2 more sections that have been added in the manager view, which would be me just having more control over everything that's in the application. So right away, the form that I use to submit the vacation request is present, and it works the exact same way. It's the same form, but when I kind of hover over this module, it gives me more options like request report and vacation calendar. Now, I mentioned earlier that when the employees submit the form, they get an email that says they've submitted the form with some of the information in it. As a manager, I also get an email, and it lets me see that someone has submitted the form, which days they want off, and then it has a link in it that lets me go back to the application so I can either approve or reject the request. If I click on the link, it takes me to this request report, and in this request report, I can see all of the different requests that have happened. So the number of days people want, the dates that they begin and end on, the employee who submitted it, their email address, the approval status, the number of days they've already taken off to this point, and then additionally 2 buttons that allow me to either approve or reject the status. So Dylan is right up at the top. He's the most recent person and he's pending. So before I can make my approval or my rejection, I need to quickly check the calendar. Now I can click the vacation calendar to see who's already going to be out and then make my decision. Right up top here you can see Keith in gray. This is someone who submitted a request and I rejected it, so they've been grayed out. But there's still a record that they submitted the request. Here you can also see Deborah and Alma. These people have had their approvals accepted, so they're green to go, and it lets me know as a manager that they're not going to be here on those days. Dylan's request is in red now. The reason why it's in red is because it really needs to get my attention. It's something that I need to act on. As you can see, it's already June 14th, and the employee wants that vacation in the very next 2 days. So again, it lets me know by color that something is urgent. Unfortunately for Dylan, Deborah has already beat him to the punch. She's going to be off, so I need Dylan in the office. That's why I'm going to go back to the request report and hit one of these 2 buttons right here to approve or reject, and I have to hit reject. And as you can see, the approval status has been updated. Now, the calendar for Dylan has been grayed out, and he has just received an email that has informed him of my decision and also invites him to come by and discuss it with me if he needs to. So it still leaves open that human contact that managers and employees need, but ultimately I've been able to quickly and very effectively either approve or reject this vacation request. Now there's two more little modules here at the top. So this first one is an employee information form. It's actually, as you can probably tell, a separate form altogether, which allows me, as a manager, to keep track of all my employee information. I can put in their name, phone number, email, all that stuff. And it basically gives me a report that allows me to see all of their information. This is a very big department for this example, but you can see that it can hold all of this stuff, including the number of vacation days that they've taken. So we have a limit of 20 days, which is what this is keeping track of for me now. I can even look at another report that we have in this module, which is our vacation days by employee report, or pie chart. So in this pie chart, we're breaking down how our employees are doing on their vacation time. 67% of employees have taken between 0 and 9 days off. 30% have taken between 9 and 19 days off, and then in red here, there's 2 employees who have taken more than 19 days, which means they've hit their limit at 20. And this is really helpful because it lets me just have a quick glance to see how everyone's doing on their vacations. From here, we can also kind of drill down on what we're seeing. There's 2 people who've maxed out their vacation days, and just by clicking, I get additional information. I can see that Kristen is one of the people who've taken all their days off, as well as Alma. That's a really helpful, quick way for me to just understand what's going on in my department. The last section in this application is a dashboard. This is the vacation days dashboard, which, as you can see, just has the reports that I've already shown. So this would allow me to put all of my reports that are relevant to this context of vacation days in one place, and I can quickly access them. And that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to be building forms, and in particular, we'll be looking at how to build this vacation request form. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hi everyone, and in this video, we're going to show you how to build the vacation request form from scratch. Now this is the final product that we're going to be making today, so let's get started. This is the form that employees use to ask for time off, and when they're using it, all they have to do is click on this drop-down and pick their name, or they can type it in to find it faster. Then they choose the dates they want off by clicking on these date fields and then picking dates on the calendar. And the last step is just putting in how many days off that'll be and hitting submit. This is the screen you see when you first start building an application in Creator. If you look to the right of this blue button here, there's an option to import a file. So if you have data stored in a spreadsheet, that's where you would begin. But most of the time you'll start by clicking New Application and then clicking Create from Scratch. These other options here are applications that you can look at as examples of what Creator does. You can actually install them on your Creator account and see how they were built. But for now, let's click Create from Scratch, and we'll call our application Vacation Requests. I'll just hit Create, and sometimes this part can take a few moments because we need to get everything set up. But when it finishes loading, you're taken to this screen. Over on the top bar, there's these dark buttons. These are like the basic navigation buttons for getting around while you're building an app. Now, let's create a new form by clicking the Create New Form button. Choose the blank option and name the form Vacation Request. Then click Create Form. After a few moments, the new form will be created. Now, there's a lot of stuff to look at here. I'll just give you a brief overview right now. On the left, you can see the Basic Fields pane, which contains all the fields that I showed you in the finished form. I was entering information into those fields. For example, when I chose a date that was just a date field, over here in the middle is the actual form that you're building. So when you're trying to build a form, all you have to do is take a field and drag it on just like this. I'm going to grab a single line field, move it over here, and it gets added to the form. So don't worry if you don't know what all the fields are, you can just experiment. That's probably the best way to learn anyway. So now that I've dragged this single line field onto the form, you'll see the properties on the right side. This is where we have the field properties on the top. The field properties just affect individual fields. so we can rename this field and tell people what information they should into it. All I have to do is go over to the field name here and type in a new name. We want to collect our employees' names, so now I just type that into the box and hit enter. And now people will know what to write there. And now the next thing I want to know is the first day that each employee wants off and the last day that they want off. I'll do this by dragging a date field onto the form, and I'll call this beginning on so we know which day their vacation starts. And I'll drag another date field and call it ending on and hit enter. Okay, so we've already built most of the app. And by the way, just so you can rearrange these things if you put something in the wrong order. There's no need to worry, you can just click and drag to rearrange stuff. It's very convenient. So, the last thing we want to know is the number of days that the employee is taking off. We'll just take a number field over here and drag that on, and we'll rename this number of days requested and hit enter. And now that we've done a quick overview of fields, let's actually use our form. Right now, this is the form builder screen that we've been in. This is for building the application. But if you want to see what your application will actually look like when people are using it, you close the form builder by clicking on Done at the upper right, and click this blue button that says Access this application. When I click that, I'm switched over to the live application. This version of the app looks a little different than the final version that I showed you earlier. That's because it has a different theme. You can actually change how creator apps look very easily. I'm just going to leave this on the current theme, so that way you can always differentiate our working app and the final app. In the live mode, I can actually type things into the box. So I'm going to write my name, and I want to take Monday off, and I want to take Tuesday off also. That's just going to be 2 days, and then to submit this to my boss, all I have to do is click submit. It's as easy as that. So now that I submitted some information, I want to know where it went. Every time you create a form in Zoho Creator, a report gets generated along with it, and the report shows all of the information that people submit through their forms. Over on the left here, there's a little link that we can click on, and this is the vacation request report. This just got generated automatically, and you can see that all the stuff I submitted is saved in here. It doesn't look too impressive right now, but if we had a bunch of records, then this whole page would be filled. And now you've already learned the two basic parts of Creator. There are forms and their reports. Forms let people submit information, and reports let you view and organize it and learn things from it. In the next video, we're going to show you how to improve upon this form we've built. If you look at it right now, we have to type in our name, which means it's not being picked from a list, and people might type it differently each time. Maybe sometimes they'll enter their first name, and at other times they'll enter their full name. As you'll remember from the final version of this app, there's a nifty little drop down here which has everybody's name already pre-entered, and by importing a spreadsheet with all that information, we'll be able to make data entry even easier for our users. And that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and in this video, we're going to show you how to import data from a spreadsheet. This video is very important because it'll actually show you how to build the employee information form we talked about in the previous video. So now I'm going to go over to our finished app. This is our employee information form, and it will also automatically generate this employee report for us. This is really important, assuming your business already has employee information or is maybe already keeping track of the number of vacation days that your employees have taken. You know you don't want to just start from scratch. You want to keep that data and make use of it. We'll supply you with some fake data like a dummy spreadsheet, so you'll be able to take this for a spin yourself. This is the spreadsheet that we're going to be using. As you can see, it's got some rows and some columns, and when we bring this into Creator, we're going to map some of this over so it'll be really easy. One of the advantages of doing this is that it'll allow you to keep all of your data in one place, so there's no more searching through all these different spreadsheets. And best of all, the information that you'll have in this employee information form is going to become really helpful for your vacation request form. You'll actually be able to link some of this stuff up. So let's go ahead and import a spreadsheet. Here's the vacation request form, and we'll just go back in to edit this application. And what we're going to do is click on the plus sign at the top and select Form, and it'll have a few options: blank, import with data, or from a template, or an integration form. We're going to create this form by importing with data. So we'll now select one of the files from our computer, and I have the file right here, open it, and it uploads that data. Now we'll just have to map our fields. So in this spreadsheet, we have this column, which is not really relevant to anything, so we'll uncheck it. We'll add this column, and now it has our first names, which will go into a single line field. Last name goes into a single line field as well, and emails will go into an email field because Creator is smart enough to detect this is a bunch of emails in this column. We also have phone numbers, which will go into a single line, street addresses into a single line, cities into a single line, and postal codes into a number field. But I'm actually going to make this into a single line field. The reason for this is that even though a postal code or a zip code is a bunch of numbers, you don't actually use them as numbers in an application. You're never adding postal codes together, for example. You're only ever just trying to keep track of them. So in this way, they function more like words, really. When we talk about number of days taken, these numbers behave like numbers, so we'll use a number field. I hope that makes sense. This is just kind of the stuff that you start figuring out as you use Creator, and now you can save a lot of time and hassle later on. So we'll go ahead and hit create and wait for it to import. Then click access this application, and right here you can see that the file has been imported and it's already built this form and report for us. We also have a new section here, the employee information. And again, we have this beautiful form. So importing a file, if you're already using a spreadsheet, can really save you a lot of time as far as moving things into Creator is concerned. In our next video, we'll actually start talking about how we're tying together the information that we have in this report with our vacation request form, and that will be by using a lookup field, which we'll explain more about later. This is where Creator starts to become really powerful. And that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Hey everyone. So in the last couple videos, we learned about adding data to our application. Now we're going to learn how to search for pieces of information and navigate within our application. Before we continue with building our Creator app, we're going to take a look at how to get around in Creator, how to move around your app, and how to look at the information that you collect with it. When you're in your browser, you can just go to creator.zoho.com, and this is your home screen. It shows you all the different apps that you've built. And if you mouse over an app and click on it, it'll take you into the live mode of the app where you can start using your application. And click on Edit this application. That will take you into Design page. This will show you all of the sections, forms, and reports for your application. If you click on a report and mouse over the center, it shows you the options to change the fields in the report or to go to the report properties. Okay, so let's go into the live application. I'll just go over here to the upper right and click Access this application. Now this is the vacation request form, but let's take a look at one that has more information entered. Here is the employee information section of our app. I'll just click on the employee information report, and as you can see, this actually looks a lot like a spreadsheet, but it's much more powerful. The best thing about this is that you can search it really quickly if you just mouse over this magnifying glass. So maybe I want to see the information about our employee, Catherine. I just type in her name and I'll hit search and it automatically finds her information. You can also make many other kinds of searches though. The options that appear for each field depend on what kind of information it has. So if it's just some text or a string, as we call it, these will be the options that appear. You can also search for something that contains a particular word or phrase, or even search for fields that are empty if you wanted to find all the employees who don't have an address entered yet, for example. Just search is empty right there. And over here, we have the number field and some slightly different options that appear. For example, we have less than or greater than. And this is useful if you want to see something like people who've taken more than 10 days off. I'll just search for that, and there you go. It looks like we've got 5 or 6 people that have already taken a lot of days off at this point in the year. These reports also let you sort them, which is really helpful sometimes. So say you wanted all of your employees sorted by name. You could just click on the first name column, and then we could say sort by ascending, just to sort them all alphabetically. You can also group by columns. So in this case, all of our employees work in San Francisco, but supposing we had different people in different regions, we could click on the city column and group by, and it would put all of the San Francisco employees together in one section, and then maybe all of our employees from Austin, Texas in another. What I've been showing you is called a list report, but you can also change the view of your report depending on what kinds of information you're looking for. If you mouse over to the right and click on this little hamburger menu, you can display this report in different kinds of views. So right now we're in a list, but I can also show this as a spreadsheet view, where it displays all of our information just like a spreadsheet, and you can click on a cell and edit it if you want. You can drag it over just like a regular spreadsheet and copy a value to other records. And if you're looking to make a lot of edits really quickly, that's a good way to go about doing it. But I'm going to put this back into the list report and just show you real quick how you can edit records when you're in the list view. So if you want to edit an individual, you can just mouse over them and click on the triple dots burger icon that appears, and you'll see the edit option. Click on it and the whole record fills the screen, and you can make an update here. Maybe we entered the wrong area code and they're actually supposed to be a 510. You can just click update and you're done. If you want to edit a lot of people's information, it's really easy. You just check off multiple boxes, and then over here on the top, you can delete these records, edit them, or duplicate them. So I'll just click the edit icon. But there's a slightly different process when you're bulk editing records. I click in this box here, and all of the fields show up. Maybe we want to update all of these people's postal codes. I'll just type in a new code, and I'll click apply, and there's a little warning message. It's telling me 3 people's records are going to be changed. And that's just to make sure that we are 100% sure that we want to do this. So I'll click yes. And as you can see, all their postal codes have been updated to 90210. Alright, that's it for this video, everyone. In the next one, we'll be looking at relating data with lookups. See you then. Hey everyone. And in this video, we're going to be talking about lookup fields in Creator. Now, lookup fields are really important in Zoho Creator because they allow you to connect the data within your application. We already know that when we're creating a form, we automatically create a report that comes along with it. Creator automatically does that, and in the same way, when we uploaded our spreadsheet, that created a form and put data into a report for us. To complete our application, or to take it to the next step, what we want to do is be able to include all that information in the employee information report in our vacation request process. Now, the reason we want to do that is because ultimately we want to keep track of how many days off people are taking, which will then allow us to automate that process. So here we're in our finished app. We can automatically select a name, say someone like Alma, and she could then submit a vacation request with a number of days. Let's say she puts in something ridiculous like 56, and it says that she has 0 days of vacation left in this calendar year. Again, all of this information is being tracked in the employee information report right here, and she's already taken 20 days. So what we're doing is we're linking our vacation request form with our employee information report. That's the power of the lookup field. Now we'll need some logic and a little bit of code to be able to make the application smart enough to keep track of everything. The lookup field is what allows that basic connection to exist. So let's go ahead and switch over to the application that we're building right now. This is our employee information report, and what we're going to do is click Edit this application, then go to the Vacation Requests section and click on the form, and then click on the Form Builder. Right now, you can see we have this single line field collecting all of our names, but we don't really need this anymore because we're upgrading to something bigger and better, so we'll delete this. What we need now, as I mentioned, is the lookup field. So it's right down here, and we just drag and drop it in, and now it wants to know what we need to look up and what data we're trying to connect to. From our vacation request form, we're trying to connect to our employee information and to the names, so we'll go ahead and put first name. Now, right here we have the option to display this lookup field in different ways. So a dropdown is what we're using in our final version, but you can also use a radio button. This is good if you want to make one choice out of many options, or you have a multi-select or checkbox options, which will allow you to make multiple selections. So we'll go ahead and use the dropdown and hit done. And now we'll go ahead and retitle our field to employee name, and we also want to add last name to this. In the display fields over on the right, we'll add a new field, and again, this is looking up information in our employee information report, and we'll select last name And then you can see a preview of what this looks like. It's not exactly like what we want, so we'll delete that hyphen. And now we're good, and we can go to the live application to see what it looks like. So now we have our employee name lookup field, and we have all of our employee names right there right away. So that's really cool. And on top of that, we now have the ability to search. So say we want to look up Susan, or Susan wants to submit her form. She just has to type in her name, and there it is. What's important here is that this is the first step in making our application smart enough to actually take work over for us. As I mentioned, lookup fields are going to be really important in Creator because they allow you to connect the data better within your application, which is why it's a vital component of Zoho Creator. And that's all we've got for this video today. Thanks for watching, and check back in for the next one. See you soon. Hey everybody, this is Scott, back with another Creator tutorial video. If you remember, in our last video, we showed you how to make a list report, and this time around we'll be making a calendar. This calendar is going to help a manager easily see who needs time off and when from right there. This is useful to see your employees and how their vacation dates have been plotted out directly onto a calendar with Zoho Creator. Let's switch over to the working version of our application here. So to do this, we're going to go ahead and click on the plus symbol at the top and select Report and then select Calendar. This calendar is going to be based on the vacation requests form. The event title is going to be the employee name. If you remember from a moment ago on the calendar, you saw the names on these banners here showing who the employee is that's taking the time off. Well, this is just going to choose to display those names as opposed to some of these other fields here. Alright, now we're going to select the beginning on and ending on dates. These can always be changed later. For now, they're just specifying the date of the calendar you want to start on. Now let's name it something like Vacation Calendar. That's going to display the request directly onto the calendar. So we're going to just hit Create Report, and to view it, we click Access this application to go into live mode. And here you can see right away, you have the calendar, you have the names on the banners, and it's all displayed automatically. You already have vacation requests input by these employees, so it shows those right on the calendar because they were pre-existing, and it puts the names on as we specified earlier. And one last little thing here. If you click on any of the banners, it'll take you in and give you more details about that specific vacation request. So here we click on Marilyn Morales, and we can see the dates her request begins and ends on, and the total number of days requested. And when we close this pop-up, we're back to the calendar. So that's it for our short video today. We hope it's been useful for you. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and in this video, we're going to learn how to make pivot charts. So what we're actually going to be building is a pie chart that shows how many days off each employee has taken. Because pivot charts can be several different types, that's just the one we're going to be using in this video. Pivot charts can look a lot of different ways. They can be things like bar charts, or line charts, or pie charts like the one you're looking at here. There's a lot of options with them, and they're really powerful. So if you'll remember from the final version of our app, we have this nice little pie chart that shows you how many days off each employee has taken, and we have it split into 3 ranges. In our fictitious business, people are allowed to take up to 20 days off, so that's in red, and then the categories below that are 9 to 19 and 0 to 9. Now let's take a look at how we made this and why those numbers overlap. I'm going to switch over to the app that we're working on, and I'm in the design preview here. I'll mouse over to the plus symbol, and then I'll click on Report, and select Pivot Chart. The first thing you do is choose what the report is based on, which is just saying which form you're going to get your data from. And in this case, we have the employee information form, which lists all of our employees and how many days they've taken off. So that's what we want to pull our info from. Then you need to give your report a name. We'll call this Amount of Vacation Taken, and I'll click Create. Now this is the screen for building pivot charts. Over on the left are all of the fields from the form you just chose, and then up here is where you're going to drag those fields in order to create your pivot chart. There's an X and Y axis, which is relevant if you're making a bar chart. And then there are colors, so you can choose which field will change the color of each bar, or in this case, slice of the pie. The text is just the label for each bar or piece of the pie. So to build this pie chart, it's actually very easy. We just need one of these fields, and we want to take the numbers of days taken off, and then drag that onto one of these axes here. Then there's a second choice you have to make every time you drag a field on, and that's this little drop down here. There are a bunch of options here, and a lot of these are related to numbers. So you can take a sum of all the days taken off, you could take the standard deviation or the maximum, there's a lot of different options. In this case, what we're going to look at are the actual values options down here. So each distinct value for the number of days that someone has taken off will become a part of our pie chart. If we choose the measure or dimension options here, in this case, that would create too many options, because our employees could have anywhere from 1 to 20 days off, and we don't want to have a pie chart with 20 different pieces of pie. Instead, we're going to choose a range, and then add a new range you can click if you want to see the spread of all your values. So we have employees that have taken as few as 1 and as many as 20 days off. In this case, we're going to choose 9.5. The reason being that we want this to be split into 3 categories. We want the people that have reached 20 to be in their own category because they've taken the maximum number of days off. We want to treat that group a little bit differently than the groups that have taken a few days off and the groups that are getting pretty close to taking all of their time off. Choosing 9.5 will put all of the employees who have taken up to 9 days off in one category, and then the second range will be anyone from 10 to 19. Above 19 will be its own range, so that will just be all the people who have taken all 20 days or the maximum. So I'll hit OK, and then I'll click on this little green button that generates our graph. This is just a preview, and we actually haven't saved anything at this point, and it shows our 3 different categories here. There's a little legend on the right that says what each color is referring to, and this says 0 to 9.5 and 9.5 to 19, but it actually is fitting people within those ranges that I just talked about. So to see what this is like in the live mode of our application, I'll just mouse over here and click Done, and then I'll click Access this application in the upper right. What's really useful about pivot charts is that you can actually click on a category and drill down to see the information that fits in there. So for example, if I wanted to see all of the employees that have taken the maximum number of days off, I could go to the category and click on this, and another tab opens up. And this shows us all the information we have about that employee. And it just gives you this kind of spreadsheet view. So you can see that Jacqueline Porter is the only person that has taken the full 20 days off. You can also filter and sort through all of these if you have hundreds or dozens of rows. And it's not easy to just see what you're looking for right away. So I'm going to close that tab here, and then I'm going to go back and to edit this application. One of the coolest parts about pivot charts is that you can actually filter what information you're analyzing in your report. This one here is looking at all of our employees, but I can actually look at just a subset of them if I wanted to, just by clicking over here on filters, then choosing which field we want to filter by. Maybe I want to see all of our employees that have a particular zip code. It looks like all of them just have 2 different zip codes. They all live pretty close by, but I'm going to choose the second one here, and you can see there's one last option over on the right. It's whether to include these items or exclude these items. What that really means is whether we want to analyze all the people that have that zip code, or do we want to analyze all the people that don't have that zip code. So I'm going to choose include, and I'll regenerate the graph, and as you can see, that changes the information because we only have a few employees that are in that subset. If you've got a lot of varying data, that's a really powerful feature to have, as it allows you to play around with the information in your creator account. And that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you in our next video. Hey everyone, back with another creator video, and this time we're going to take a look at dashboards, which allow you to combine multiple forms and reports together on the same page, and sections, which are how Creator divides up your application and sorts all of the forms and reports. So I'm just going to go over to edit this application and then click on the plus sign at the upper left to create a new component, and then I'm going to make what's called a page. Just so you know, page is the same thing as a dashboard, and I'm just going to use those words interchangeably from now on. Now I'm going to call this the Vacation Days Dashboard and click Create Page. And then you see this kind of fancy screen where there's all these panel elements over on the left that allow you to display summarized information within your dashboard. You can actually build a really powerful dashboard using these different panel elements. Under the Form section, you can combine multiple forms from different applications on one page. just click the application button, and then you get this drop-down list. Here, you can choose the application that contains the required form. Then, choose the form from the drop-down list, which appears when you click the form option. Now, this is cool because it allows you to take forms from multiple different creator apps and put them together on one page. Similarly, under the Reports section, we can insert reports from different applications onto a page. Now, let's insert a report from the Vacation Request app. When we click the Report option, a drop-down list displays all the reports in that app. So, I want to put in our vacation calendar. Now, drag and drop the element found under the Embed as Report section. The report is now inserted into the page, and the Properties pane will be displayed in the right. They help you fine-tune how your reports look and whether people can make changes to the information in the report. Now I'll click Done, but then I want to put one more report on the same page, so I'll choose a report. For this one, I'm going to do the Amount of Vacation Taken report, which is just the pie chart that we built. And I'll click Done to close the pop-up, and then I'll click Done to exit the page builder, and finally I'll hit Access this application. So there's our report, and we have our pie chart as well. You can actually combine as many forms or reports as you want on one page, and you can build some really cool things by doing it. But now, for the last part, I just want to take a look at sections in Creator apps because it's actually really easy to hide or show reports and change around the sections. When I talk about sections, I mean these things that are showing up over here depending on what theme you choose, or sometimes the sections will appear across the top as sort of a navigation bar. So I'm going to go back to edit this application in the design preview and click on the sections icon here. This shows how our app is organized into sections. We now have vacation requests, employee information, and our new dashboard there. If you want to hide something, you just mouse over that component and click the hide button. Now, if I went live application, you wouldn't see our dashboard, but it wouldn't delete it. It just hides it from all the other users. That can be handy if you're working on a feature that you don't want to implement quite yet. Another thing you can do is to create a new section by clicking on this button up here and then dragging any component that you want to organize by just moving it down and dropping it into the section. If you gave a section a name that doesn't quite fit now, you can change its name by just clicking the edit button right there, and you type in a new name, and that's all you have to do. I'm going to keep that name for now though. And that's about it. In the next video, we're going to take a look at rules and workflows, which are used for automating things in Creator. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Hey everybody, and in this video, we're going to do a brief overview of workflows, which let you automate things in your Creator applications. What we're going to be doing is learning how to keep track of the status of an employee's request for time off without letting the employee know what the status is. So if you look at the final version of our application again, this is the calendar, and you can see all of the vacation requests on here. Now, you probably noticed that these are color-coded. So we have green ones that have been approved, gray ones that have been rejected, and then red requests that are pending approval. If you look at the request form, we don't have any fields here that keep track of this status. So how can the manager keep track of it without the employees being able to make any changes to it? Well, let's just flip back over to the working version of our application. The way that we're actually going to do this is by adding a field that only the manager can use. It will keep track of the status, but it won't allow employees to make any changes to it. So I'm just going to click on our form here, and then click Edit this application to go to the Design Preview, and click Open Form Builder. Then I'm going to add a field. So I'll drag a drop-down field on here, and I'll rename this Status. And then I'm also going to change these choices from the drop-down so they don't just say Choice 1 and Choice 2. So I'll make the first one pending, and the next one approved and rejected. And if you want to add more choices, you can just click the plus button, or you can get rid of choices with the minus button. And if you want to move these around, all you have to do is click and drag them, which is pretty easy. Right now, every time someone submits this form, they're not actually choosing anything for this field. So to make sure that all of their requests come in as pending, we just click this little circle right here, and that will pre-select it. Now, there's actually a couple different ways to hide this field from employees. So we can create a workflow and either do a point-and-click workflow action or put deluge code into the workflow to hide the field. The first thing you do is you click Workflow at the top. Then click on Create Workflow. And since we know we want to hide the field on the form, we'll choose While using the form and select the Vacation Request form. The next step is to choose when your workflow applies. You can add workflows that will run at different points of using your application, so when someone's adding a record or when someone's editing or deleting one. Created is when someone is just filling out the form, and edited would affect the manager, so someone who is looking at records that have already been submitted. In many cases, you'll want to do edited, but in this case, we only want to hide this field from employees who are filling out the form, so we'll just do this on created. Now we'll call this workflow Hide Status and click on Create Workflow, and now we can see the Add New Action button, so we can add one or more actions of different kinds to this workflow. We'll just add an action, and you can see the different options. Notifications for emails and mobile, field actions to hide or show fields on the form, data access to make changes to other data in the app, integrations to push submitted data to other services, and deluge script to run deluge code. The first step is to choose a condition to run this action. This is just saying when the action will be applied. So we can apply this always or on condition based off of what people enter in our fields. In this case, we're just going to apply this all the time. And then the last step is to associate tasks. So the field actions is what we're going to be dealing with. To create a field action, you just click here, and then you can choose what it does. Hide and show fields allows you to hide or show fields from your users. Enable and disable doesn't hide the fields, but prevents people from entering anything in them. Set field value lets you pre-fill a response. And on user input allows you to write deluge code when a field is changed. So we're going to choose hide fields, and then you just choose which fields you want to hide. We're hiding the status field, and you hit save, and it adds the action to the workflow. That's actually all you have to do for this one. The other way that you could accomplish this is by using the deluge code option in the workflow action. So we'll click on Add New Action again, and if you click on Deluge Script, you actually see some different types of actions. Let me just give you a brief overview of what this stuff means. The Deluge Script section is for writing custom code for your application. The field actions are where you put scripts when you want something to happen when somebody fills out a particular field or a particular box in your application. This workflow only runs when a record is created, so the onUserInput field action is here and onUpdate is not available. The form action onLoad is that before your users even see anything, you can start running some scripts. The form action onValidate is when they hit the submit button, but before they've created a record. This helps you make sure that they've entered information correctly and checks for any mistakes they might have made. And then onSuccess is a script that runs after they've submitted a record and everything worked out fine. So in this case, if you wanted to hide a field, you could go to the onLoad script and then you would scroll down in these deluge tasks. These are just blocks of code that do different things in Creator. So I'm not going to cover all these today because that's a lot to cover. But if you look in the client functions, you can drag on this hide task, move that into the middle there. So the great thing about Deluge is that you don't have to be a coding expert. To use it, you can just drag stuff on, and if you know what it means, then you can follow the syntax assist and make stuff happen in your app. So in this case, we just choose whether we want to hide or show a field, and then we choose which field it'll be. In this case, we want the status field, and we want to hide it. And since this is the onLoad section, that's all we have to do. This script will only apply on load, so that means that when you're editing your application as the manager, you'll still be able to see the status because this workflow is not going to run when editing a record. So the last step is you just hit save to save the action and close the workflow editor by hitting done, and that's all you have to do. Okay, so now I'm going to click on access this application, and you can see that that field is not showing up on the form. But is it showing up if we look in the calendar or in our reports? If I click on one of these records, we're still not seeing it, so what's the deal? Actually, our workflow is working perfectly fine, but what we need to do is change the settings on our report in order to see that new field. When we built this report, the status field didn't exist. So I'll click Edit this application. Now we're in the Report Design screen. We need to make the status field appear in the Detail view of the report. So let's navigate to the Detail View option on the right. Then click on the Configure Fields for Web button and the Configure Fields pane will appear. As you can see, the status field is missing as it was created after the report was generated. To insert it, let's click Add Fields and choose the status field from the drop-down list. Now, save the changes and click Access this application. And I click on someone's name, you can see that there's a status. And right now, the status is blank because we haven't been entering anything in there. But if I just click Edit, I can see my new field and whether this is approved or rejected. So I'm going to approve this one and click Update. And that's all we've got for you today. Thanks for watching, everyone. In the next video, I'll be showing you how to add in the color coding that you saw in today's tutorial. Hey everyone, and in this video, we're going to talk about conditional formatting. So let's take a look at what that means. In the final version of our application, you can see that the calendar report we made is color-coded. All of the reports that have been rejected are in gray, so they're de-emphasized. The ones that have been approved are in green, so we can see who's taking time off. And then the ones that the manager needs to pay attention to, that are just pending still, are in red. So we're going to figure out how to do this by using conditional formatting. Don't worry, it's just a fancy name for customizing the UI of your report and changing how things look. Let's switch over to the working version of our application here, and I'm going to click on Edit this application. Now we'll be taken to the design screen of the calendar report. What we need to click is Open Report Properties. This will take us to the Event Properties page. From here, you can see that there are a lot of different options with which we can customize the report, but the option that we need is Event Formatting. To create a new rule, click on Add New Rule, and a new pane containing a list of predefined templates will be displayed. You can either choose from the templates, or you can create a custom one. So I'm going to click on Custom, and in this rule, we're going to change all the records that have been approved to green. Now I'll choose the green color under the Choose Formatting section, and a preview of the formatting will also be shown. Then, under the Apply this Format For section, we have to choose which records this is going to be applied to. So you could do all records, but then even our rejected ones would be in green, and that's not what we want. So we're going to do Selected Records, and we're going to use the status field to decide which records we'll change the color of. Now, if the status is approved, then the formatting will be applied. So we're going to choose Status in the field list and Contains as the operator. Now you see that Creator automatically lists the options in our status because it's a drop-down field. And then we're going to select Approved. Finally, we'll call this formatting color code Approved, and I'll hit Save. Now that the rule has been created, we want to make one more conditional formatting for the records that are pending because we want to call the manager's attention to these ones. Click on Add New Rule and then click on Custom, as we'll be creating a new custom rule. In this rule, we're going to change all of the records that have been pending to red. I'll just choose the red color under the Choose Formatting section, and then under the Apply this Format For section, choose Selected Records. So we're going to choose Status in the field list and Contains as the operator. Then select the Pending option from the last drop-down list. We'll call this formatting color code Pending, and then hit Save. Thankfully, we don't have to make another one, the rejected requests, because by default, they're gray when they get added to the calendar, so that already doesn't show up very much, which is fine in our case. And to complete it, just click Done. Now let's click Access this application, and you can see that our color coding has been added in the calendar report. If I click on one of these requests, maybe we'll choose Cheryl's, you can see it's been approved, but I can edit this and set it to rejected, and it'll change color. So before it was green, and now it'll show up as gray, so we don't really have to pay attention to it anymore. In the next video, we're going to look at another feature that can help the manager out and save them some time. We're going to set up how to automatically email people when their requests for time off get marked as approved or rejected. Okay, everyone. We hope you learned a little something in this video, and we'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, and in this video, we're going to learn the easy way to automatically send emails using creator apps. So there's actually several different ways to send emails. One way is by using form notifications, and another is as a workflow. That's where you can use notification tasks and deluge code to send emails. That's actually the more advanced way to do it, and we're going to cover that in the next video. But for this one, I'll just show you the pros and cons of sending emails using our simple notification system. So this system will send an email every time someone submits this form. We don't get control over conditions for when it gets sent, and that's actually one of the drawbacks, but it is very easy to use. So if you don't feel like getting into the workflows, this is probably good enough for you. When you're on a form in design preview mode, all you have to do is open the form builder and just click the gear icon at the upper left, and then select Send Email Notification to enable it. And when you click Customize, a pop-up screen comes up. Now, the screen actually doesn't look that much different from the way you normally send an email. There's a From and a To box at the top, and then a Subject and a Message box. So when you click one of these boxes, some options will show up. And for the From address, you have to send it from one of the users of your application. In this case, we're going to choose the admin's email address. And this just means that the emails we send out will come from whichever email address we used when we signed up for Creator and built this application. In the To box, we can choose the admin's email address, or there's this other option, Logged In User's Email, which is whoever is using your form in this application. The logged in user email is just the email of the employee who's requesting time off. So we'll go ahead and choose that. And for the subject, we'll write, I received your request. And you can actually use information that people submitted to customize your message. And to do that, you have to use this Insert Fields dropdown here. So I click this and a bunch of things show up. And most of these system fields aren't very relevant. They just record which time somebody submitted your form and things like that. But the form fields are going to be kind of useful. We can actually take what someone put in their request and incorporate that into our email back to them, confirming that we received it. So I'll just write a little message here. Hi, I got your request for time off from, and then I'll insert the first day they want off by choosing the beginning on field. And then I'll write to, and then the last day that they wanted off by using the ending on field. And finally, I'll just give them a message saying that I'll get back to them. So what this inserted in my message when I chose those fields were these little snippets of code, but it's not going to look like that when your message actually gets delivered. Instead, it'll have the dates that somebody chose when they filled out your form, and the same thing applies for any other field you can use in the body of your email message. And you can actually copy and paste these if you want to include field information in your subject lines as well. One other cool thing that we can't demonstrate right now is that you can send emails to email addresses entered in an email field. So, since our form doesn't have one, it's not showing up. But if we did have one, you would see an email field right here in the To box, and you could just click that, and whoever fills out your form with their email address can get an automated email. So if I scroll down to the bottom here, there's a few other options, and these you can usually just leave. They don't matter that much, although I do recommend leaving the Include Users Submitted Data box unchecked. What that box does is it just includes the answers that people gave to every field in your form, and it's formatted with a default template that you can also send as a PDF attachment, but in most cases you won't need it. All you have to do now is just click Done, and your email notification is up and running. So the drawback of this method of sending emails is that you can only have one email message per form. That's it, that's all you get. But in many cases, you'll want to be able to send different emails depending on the circumstances of who's using your form and things like that. For those more complicated scenarios, it's better to use workflows. So to test this, I can go to Access this application and fill out the form. I'm just going to choose Chris and ask for 2 days off. And when I hit Submit, I should get an email now. When I switch over to my inbox and click on the email, you can see that it filled it in with the dates. And now you know how to set up a simple automated email. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and in this video we're going to learn how to send an email to people whose requests have been approved and another to people whose requests have been rejected. So this video is going to be a little bit longer because the method we're using is a bit more advanced, but it gives you more control over what messages you're sending. So let's get started. You can send more than one email for each form in your app if you use scripting, and you can also use information from lookup fields. So if you look at our current form, we have all of these names that are being looked up. We can't use these in the body of our message, unfortunately, so we can't use them to greet people by name, for example. But by using scripting, we'll be able to get around that and send different messages to different people. First, let's go into Edit this application and take a look at a few things on the Form Builder screen. Click Open Form Builder, then click the More button at the top right corner of the screen. Then, in the list, click Rename. So the first thing I want you to notice is that we have this form title, Vacation Requests, and right beneath it we have something called the form link name, and you'll notice that the space has been turned into an underscore there. Now, that's something that Creator generates automatically, and this is used when we're writing scripts. So, if we want to refer to information that's been submitted through this form, we should use the form link name and not the form title. And the same thing goes for the field properties too. You'll see that we have this field named Employee Information, and then down beneath it we have the field link name, which again is very similar, but the spaces have been turned into underscores. So I'm actually going to update the name of the field, as I think that Employee Information isn't the best name, and I think I'll just call this Employee, and I'll hit Enter. The other thing you need to know is that the kind of field you use determines how Creator interacts with the data that's entered through it. So, for example, the single line field is for entering text. When you pick which field goes on your form, you're actually helping Creator out so you can avoid confusion. For example, if you have some text data in your app, Creator will know that this can't be multiplied or divided. It's just text. But if you have something entered in a number field, then Creator knows you can multiply and divide it. So when you see something like the drop-down field, for example, like the status over here, this is being treated like text. There's just a few options. However, if you have a lookup field, it's a little bit different, even though what we're displaying is the employee's name in this field. You would think this would be text, but actually it is referring to an ID number that comes from the form we're looking up information from. So Creator treats lookup fields like numbers, and that information will be important moving forward. So now we're going to go over to the workflow area. So now I'm going to go over and click the workflow button that's at the top. I just want to remind you that workflows seem a little complicated, but they're actually quite simple. You can usually think of it like an if-then scenario. In this case, if the status of the request is approved, then we'll send one message. And if the status is rejected, then we'll send a different message. We've already seen the procedure to create a new workflow in our earlier videos. So let's go create a new workflow, then choose the While Using Form option, as our workflow is based on the vacation request form. Finally, we'll name the workflow Email. Now, click on Create, and click on Add New Action. We're going to be focusing on the Deluge script section of the workflow screen and the options to choose from where your script will be executed. In this case, though, we want to go to the On Success action. When the manager goes into the app and edits a request and says that a request has either been approved or rejected, that's actually editing a record. We use on success because once their new status has actually gone through, that's considered a success, and we have to send our emails. So I'll click on success. And then the next thing you have to look at are the deluge tasks. These help you write your script in Creator, and there are a whole bunch of them. So I said earlier that you can think of this workflow like an if-then statement. So if the status is approved, then we'll do something. So I'm just going to drag on this if condition here, and Creator pops up this syntax assist to help you. What you need to know is that we have to write our condition and tell Creator when it should execute the code that we're going to put here. So we're going to use the approval status field to decide whether or not we need to execute this code. Let's click on the Advanced Edit button. So I'll just select the status field from the list, and you can see all the other fields that are listed here and use them based on your needs. Once I click full status, it's inserted in the script. And since we need the value entered for this field, we have to prefix input before it. So in our if statement, if the status is approved, we need to add the operator. That will be the equals. If the status is equal to approved, then we'll do something. Next, we need to say what our criteria is. So I'll just write approved. When you're dealing with text data in Creator, it has to be put in quotes. So as you'll remember, I said earlier that when you have information that's going in a dropdown, Creator just treats it like text. This is a particular quirk of Deluge, and all programming languages have their own quirks. So I'll just put quotes around approved, and now we've added in some code to our script builder here. Click Done. Click the Insert button. The next step is that we need to add another if statement to take care of all the times when the status is rejected. So again, you just drag on the if condition, and I'm going to choose status field equals, and then I'll type rejected. We'll put that in quotes too, as it's text data. And now it's been added to our script builder. So the next step is that we need to say what emails we're sending depending on the status. So just look over at the miscellaneous section and drag the send mail deluge task. You want to make sure that you get it right in between the brackets of the if statement. And when you let go, some predefined text will appear. If you watched our video on basic email notifications, this should look familiar to you. So we just choose a from and a to address. In the from address, let's name the ID Zoho Admin User ID. And that just means that the email will be coming from the email address of the app's admin, which is whoever created this application. Let's skip over the to address for now. We add it at the end because that's a little bit more complicated. Now I'm going to go into the subject line and write, your request has been approved. And in the body, you can actually use information that people entered in your form in your message. So I'm going to say, congratulations, your request for time off from, and then we're going to insert the value entered by the employee. So close the quotes and type a plus symbol, then type input. I'll just choose the beginning on date. Now that it's been inserted, we need to type a plus symbol to finish it. Again, let's open quotes and type to. Similarly, we can insert the last date of their vacation by choosing the ending on date field, and then I'll write has been approved. Filling out the to address is probably the most complicated part because we're going to have to write some script all by ourselves. In this case, we want to look up someone's email address from the employee information form, and because we added the lookup field earlier, we'll be able to do this. The syntax that you use for looking up information from another form is pretty simple, and it's really just answering 3 questions. It kind of looks like this. You choose which form you want to look up information from, and then in square brackets, you write which records from that form you're trying to look up. So you write some criteria in there, and then you put a period, and then you say which field you want the information from. This is what the syntax looks like. And now let's actually write it. So in this part, I'm going to be switching between tabs because we're going to have to look up the field link names and the form link names. We want to look up information from our employee form. So I'm going to switch over to this other tab and click on the name form found at the top left corner. Here, I'm going to switch to the employee information form, then click the More button found in the top right corner of the screen. In the list, click Rename. The form title and the form link name will then be displayed in a pop-up. We're just going to copy the form link name and switch back to the Deluge script page and paste it in here. And in the square brackets, we need to say which records we're looking for. So if you remember from earlier, Creator actually treats lookup fields like ID numbers, and I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So when I pick my name from the list, when I'm submitting a vacation request, it's looking up my name from another table. What's actually happening in the background is that Creator is referencing my ID number in the employee information form. And the reason it does that is that the name field might not be unique. You could have two employees with the same name, and without an ID number that's associated with them, Creator wouldn't know who you're talking about. So in here, we'll say that we want to find the record in the employee information form that has an ID that it's equal to. We'll use a double equals sign because that's how you write it in Deluge, and the record with the ID that's equal to what was input in the lookup field. I'll write input, and then we need to find the name of our lookup field and have our employee lookup field here. I'll just click on that. So this script is telling Creator to find the record of the employee that we chose from our lookup field. And the last step is we want to find the employee's email, because right now, the script is pulling in the employee's entire record with all of the information we have about them, and we just need one particular piece of information. So outside the bracket, I'll type a period, and then we'll need the name of the field. In this case, we want the email field. What this script is doing is it's taking the input into our lookup fields. And when someone is submitting their request, they choose their name, and then the app is finding their email, which is stored in a separate form, the employee information form. This bit of script that I showed you for fetching information is actually really useful because it allows you to find pieces of information that have been related to each other but aren't necessarily from the same form. Click the Insert button, and the script for the approved email is complete. Now, I'm just going to add some extra spaces in between the brackets of the second if statement. This is for the rejected requests. And I'm going to copy all of this code that we've just made for sending the email. It starts with send mail right there and has these square brackets. And I'm going to paste it down here in the second if statement. We also have to make a couple changes because we don't want the message to be exactly the same. So to do that, you can just start writing in here, and in the subject line, we want to say that the, quote, request has been rejected. But the from and to can stay the same. And in the message, we'll say, your request for time off from the start date and the end date has been rejected. Probably we don't want to say congratulations either, so instead we'll say sorry. And we can also add in a message that they can contact the manager if they have any questions. And now that script is done too. You always have to save your script before it goes live. So once you hit this save button, it's applied to the application and it will start running. But you want to make sure that everything is working before you do that. So I'm going to test it real quick. I'll go and click on Done and then click on the Access this application button. And then I choose my name, request a couple days off, and hit Submit. I can now go into the vacation request report, and normally an employee will not be able to do this, but I'm just mixing up roles for making the demonstration easier. An employee can file a request, and the manager would go into this calendar and they could find that request, and the status will show pending. So then I edit this and choose Approved and click Update. Then, when I switch over to my inbox, now I've got an email showing that my request has been approved, and you can see that it's coming from the manager's email address. How you set up automatic emailing with some basic scripting. We hope you learned something interesting in today's video, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and in this video, we're going to learn how to write a validation script that will check if someone has requested time off and is asking for too much time, and will reject it automatically if that's the case. This will save the manager a lot of time and will also let employees keep track of how many vacation days they have left for the year. So I'm in the final version of our app right now, and when an employee goes in and makes a request, we actually have a feature that will prevent it from going through if they're requesting too much time off. In this fictitious scenario, each employee is allotted 20 days of time off per year. So when I go in here, I choose my name, and I say I'm going to take the whole month off. Then, when I hit submit, it doesn't create a record. I just get an error and a message that lets me know how much time off I have left for the year, so I don't go bugging the manager to look it up. Now, I'm going to switch back over to the working version of our app, and I just want to take a quick look at our employee information. So I'm going to click on that section and I'm going to go to our report. And you can see that we're actually tracking this information already. We have a field for the number of days taken off. And if we can reference this information when someone is filling out a request, then we can make sure to throw an error if they're asking for more time off than they've been allotted, or if they've already reached their limit. So we're going to be going back into the workflow part of Creator and writing some more scripts. And if you need any help with it, in the description to this video on YouTube, there should be a link to a little cheat sheet that will help you out with the code, in case you need to reference it, or if you just want to copy and paste it into your app. Now I'm going to click on Edit this application, and I'm going to go over to the Workflow section. We have to create a new action in a new workflow. Click on the New Workflow button, then choose the While Using Form option. Our workflow is based on the vacation request form. Finally, we'll name the workflow Record Scripts. Now, click Create Workflow. So click on Add New Action, and as usual, the first thing you need to do when you get to the workflow section is to decide where to put your code. For this script, we need to check people's information once it's been submitted, but before it actually creates a record in the database. And that's when you would use the validate code. Syntax Assist will be enabled by default. Let's disable it by using the toggle above and continue using the script builder. So the first thing we need to do is look up how many days off the particular employee filling out this request has already had. To do that, we're going to use the fetch record syntax. Just like the previous videos, we'll be scripting a code that'll do exactly what we need it to do. So I'm just going to drag that onto our script builder here. It then gives you this dropdown that's really helpful because it lets you look up the names of the forms and fields in your application, so you don't have to keep switching back and forth to look them up. The first thing we need to do here is to create a variable. And when you do that, you're just taking a word and you're associating some information with it. So it's kind of like storing information inside a word. Usually, you'll want to give it a descriptive name that will help you remember what information you associated with what variable. In this case, it's the number of days someone's already had off. So I'll just call this days off. And then I'll click on Form, and we get another little pop-up that helps us out. This is conveniently listing all of the forms in our application by their form link name. So we want to look this up from the employee information form, because that's where we're storing it. For the next step, we need to write the criteria for the records we want to look up from the employee information form. And that's what's going to happen in between these square brackets here. So choose a field from the employee information form, and then you write an expression that tells Creator which information in that field you're looking for. When you look at this drop down here, you can see the names of the fields on this form, but there's also some other information that Creator automatically keeps every time a record gets added. You can see things like added user, that's the person who submitted the record, and what we're actually going to do is look for records based off of the employee ID. So I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom and click ID. And on the right, it says what kind of variable this is. And IDs are just numbers, so Creator calls numbers big ints or big integers. So I'm going to choose that. And then we want to find the record with an ID that matches. There's other options that show up here, like greater than or less than or not equal, which can be handy sometimes. But what we want to do is find a record that's equal to, and then this is where we're going to have to write a little part ourselves. So we want to use information from the vacation request form to look up the employee on the employee form. Now I'll type input and then a period, and then the name of our lookup field on this form, which is the employee field. So what this script in between the square brackets is saying is to find all of the records in the employee form that have an ID equal to what we're putting in the employee field here. When an employee chooses their name from the list, even though they're seeing their name in the background, what they're really doing is choosing the ID of their record in your database. It's just saying, find the records where these match up. The last thing you need to do is say which field you're trying to look at. So you type a period outside the square brackets, and Creator gives you another pop-up that helps you out here. So you can scroll down, and we'll find the number of days taken off, and that's the first line of our script. The rest of the code that we're going to write will pop up an error message and cancel someone's submission. So the first thing we need to do is add in a condition, because if we didn't add a condition, then those steps would happen every time someone fills out this form, which definitely would not be good. So I'll just go over to the conditions section here, and I'll drag on an if condition, and then we need to write some criteria in these parentheses that tell Creator when to run this script. Since employees are only allowed 20 days off, we can compare the number of days they've already had off with the number of days that they're asking for. So again, I'll type input and then a period, and then the number of days requested. And if you want to know how I knew exactly the field name as Creator formatted it, you can click the Refer Fields button in the top right corner. This will show the link names of all the fields on this form. So I didn't have to switch over this time to get the name of the number of days they've requested. And then I'll write plus days off. Right now, we're tallying together the number of days they've actually had off and the number of days they're asking for. And if that number is greater than 20, then we want to run our script that cancels their submission. So what I'm actually going to do is put another set of parentheses in here, and that just tells Creator to add both of these things together before following the next step. And then I'll write greater than 20. What's really cool about this is that we just stored some information that was from a completely different form in a variable, and then we used it in this little calculation here to see whether or not this is a valid request for time off. The other handy thing we did in the final application was we told employees how many days off they have left. In our error message, I want to be able to tell employees how many days off they have left, so we can actually write another variable with another equation that will help us figure that out. I'm going to drag on the set variable task, and I'll name my variable days left. And so I'll put some parentheses over here, and then I'll write 20 minus input and then a period, days off. And you can see that little semicolon there that's just telling Creator that you've ended this line. So since the limit is 20, and we're looking at how many days they've actually taken off, this will tell us how many are left if someone has taken 5 days off already. 20 minus 5 means they have 15 days left for the year. Now, the final step is we're going to add in our error message that tells people this. So if you mouse over to the debug section and then drag on alert, we can start writing our message. Actually, what we need to do is put quotes here, which tells Creator that this alert message is not going to pull the information from a variable. It's just going to be some text. So I'll write, you are exceeding your total number of days off. You have only, and then I'll add in a space here, and I'll write plus, and then days left. And so what that's doing is it's going to take the information in this variable and then add it into our message here. So you had only 15 if someone had 15 days left. And then I'll add a plus and start another set of quotes to continue our message. And I'll add in another space because if we don't, then our text will butt up against the number, which won't look right. So now you have only 15 vacation days left for this year. So the last step is that we need to cancel their submission and prevent it from going through. And if I just mouse over to the miscellaneous section, we have one called Cancel Submit here. And then I'll just drag that on, and I'll save this script. So now click Done, and then click Access this application. If I try and make a request for too many days off, it should give me this error. So I'll just choose a name here, and I'll say that I want the 1st through the 25th off, and that's 25 days. And I'll hit Submit, and we got our nice error message there, and it tells us exactly how many days off we actually have left for the year. And that's it for today's video, everybody. Hi everybody, and in this video, we're going to be making a button so you can easily approve and reject vacation requests, and we're going to be using just a little bit of script to get that done. For this tutorial, we're going to be adding these buttons here on the records to approve and reject requests. This is super convenient because you can just see the approval status here, and if you see any pending, you can look at them real quick and just go ahead and approve or reject them right away from this screen. So to start doing that, I'm going to switch over to our working application here, and we're going to go to Edit. Alright, so from this screen, just click on the Configure Fields for Web button, and the Configure Fields pane will appear. This is where we're going to create the buttons. What we're doing here is we're going to make two different functions. One function is going to be for rejecting vacation requests, and the other is going to be for approving them. First, let's create a button for approving requests. Click Add Fields, and from the list that appears, choose Add New Button, which is found under the Buttons section. So let's just name it Approve Request, and that's the name that'll be displayed on the button in the app. For the Enable Action item, choose the On Condition option, and then the Set Condition dialog pops up. From here, choose a status field and set the condition as Not Null. This is done to ensure that only the fields marked pending will be processed. So let's assign a name to the workflow. Then, click the Create Workflow button. Now, click on Add New Action, and among the different action types, we'll be using the Deluge script type in this workflow. In the next window, I'll be selecting the Run a Function option, as we need to create a new function, and this is where we start building out the function in earnest. Now, we've chosen the vacation request because our function will be based on this application. The namespace is essentially where you want this function to be stored, so you can have different folders that store your functions. You don't have to put anything here. Now click Create New Function. This will take you to the Deluge script builder. Here, we'll be writing the script for our function. Initially, we have to choose the return type. This is the data that it returns on use. So, for us, we're not going to be returning any data. For example, maybe you wanted to, when you hit this button, return a date. We aren't going to be doing that. We're just going to be having it edit already existing data. So we're going to keep that void, which essentially means we're not doing anything. Now, let's assign a name to the function. I plan on calling it approved. So let's type the new name by replacing the existing one. Here, we're just taking the data from the vacation request form. In the brackets, we have to enter the link name of the vacation request form, and we're going to call this request. So let's grab the Update Records button, drop it here, and you can see it's pre-filling all of this with information we already put in. Let's close the syntax assist and continue. So we're going to take the request in the status field, and this is what it's going to update the status as. This is the approval function. So we're going to put approved as one of the drop-down options, and you have to write it exactly as it is there. And it's important to note the case of the letter. So we have to make sure this is a capital here. Hit save, and it'll save, and now it's taking us back to the workflow design screen. Choose the field name as vacation request from the drop-down list, and now click save, then done, and then create. And the button is now created. For the reject approval button, we need to follow the same exact steps. First, click on add fields, add a new button, and then name the button reject request. Now, create a new workflow for the reject request. Then, click the create workflow button. Now, click on add new action, and among the different action types, we'll be using the deluge script type in this workflow. I'll be selecting the run a function option, as we need to create a new function. Now, we've chosen the vacation request because our function will be based on this form. Now click create new function. Just like the approval request, this one too will be a function. The only difference here is that the status that's given in quotes will be rejected instead of approved. Now click save. Choose the field name as vacation request from the drop-down list. Now click save, then done, and then create. Now both the approve and reject buttons have been created. To view this live application, just click access this application. Alright, so as you can see, it worked here. We have the approve buttons and the reject buttons right next to each other. And from here, you can go ahead and each one of these people you can approve and reject just from this screen. So if you look here, let's go to Christina Gore, and she's requested 25 days off, which we don't like one bit. So we're going to reject it, and you'll see the success message, and you see her status went from pending to rejected. Thank you all for watching. We hope this video helped you out, and we'll see you next time. Hey everyone, and in our video today, I'm going to talk about sharing and publishing apps in Zoho Creator. Sharing apps is what you do when you want to give users access to a few parts of your app, and you can control which parts they get access to. A couple important details here though. When we talk about sharing, we're talking about users with creator accounts. But when we publish an app, it essentially becomes available to everyone. So if you'll remember from the first video, we had different versions of our app for employees and for managers. So employees only get to see the form where they can request time off. They don't get to see the reports for everybody else's requests or make changes. And they don't get to access the employee information that's only for the manager. So I'm going to click on Edit this application. And the first thing you need to know is that if you want to share just one form or report, the fastest way is usually to click this Share button found in the top right corner. Here, you can pick the type of individual you share the app with, user, customer, or developer. And you can just enter the email of whoever you want to send the application to, and you can choose whether you want to notify them or just give them access and send them your own email later on. Now, the other option that we have is publishing, which makes that part of your app public on the web. Anyone can access it and search engines can crawl it. So that might not be the best option for some people. However, if you don't want to manually add a bunch of different users to your application, you could just publish the vacation request form. So for this, we're going to go to Settings and click Publish under the Users and Controls section. select the vacation request form from the drop-down list, and then click Publish. Once the publishing is complete, a pop-up appears with a publish URL and an embed code. If you wanted to put this on your existing website, you could just copy this and paste it into the code, and it'll show up on your site. You can also change some of the options to control how this looks when you embed this on the web. To make changes to the appearance of the form, click the Change Appearance button, and a window will appear with a wide range of features you can choose from. Creator also enables you to have control over which segments the users of your application can access. This can be achieved by using permissions. Now let's navigate to the Users page by clicking on the Users button in the left pane. Here, a list of all the users of this application will be displayed. Each of these users have to be assigned a permission, based on which they'll be given access to the application and its components. To manage permissions, click Permissions at the top of the page. Here we can edit existing permissions or create new ones. So let's create a new one. First, click the Add Permission button and then assign a name to it. Let's go with Intern, as it will describe the permissions for the interns in the organization. Under the Set Permissions segment, we can choose to give the kind of access that's required. So, since this permission is for interns, I'll choose to give them only the permission to view the application forms. They cannot add, edit, or delete records that are already present. Under the More option, you can also choose the individual fields you want to grant access to. Once the permissions have been sorted out, click Done, and then click Save, and the new permission will be created. Now, let's navigate back to the Users tab, where we'll change the permission for users. Select a user, and then a new button will appear above the user list. From there, click on the Choose Permission drop-down and select a permission from the list. Now, it'll be assigned to the user, and based on the new permission, the user will be able to view only the parts of the app that you selected. Then, we have this option to choose developer. So click on the Share button in the top right corner and choose Developer. Enter their email address right here and click Share. The developer will now be able to go into your application, delete fields, change settings. They'll have that complete level of control that I was showing you just a second ago, a level of control not available to your average user. And that's all you need to know about sharing apps in Creator. We hope you learned something useful today, and we'll see you in the next video.